and welcome to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders. This is a show where I interview the most inspirational and thought-provoking leaders of today and unearth their unique stories of diversity and inclusion to help inspire, educate, and motivate others to make the world a better place. Today, I am absolutely delighted to be joined by a lady who really does need no introduction, so I'm going to keep it brief. Her name is Cindy Gallop. Cindy is an English advertising consultant, founder, former chair of the US branch of advertising from the firm BBH, and founder of IfWeRanTheWorld and MakeLoveNotPorn. One of the most provocative and fantastic company titles I have heard, and thrilled to have Cindy with us on the show today. I will say before we get started that I am sure there will be a fair amount of swearing throughout the podcast. And so if you are sensitive at all, we are giving a little censor warning to the podcast. There are likely to be a fair few swear words. And on that note, Cindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Leila. Thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much for being here today. And as I said to you before the podcast commenced, you have a big fan base within our organization, which actually is not that big, but I tell you what, small but mighty. They are absolutely so excited to have you here with us today, in particular, Michelle, who is our CMO, who speaks so positively about you. And I wonder for those who are tuning in today, be they execs, be they young aspiring entrepreneurs, or young graduates, going into the world of work, whether you might be able to give us a little summary in your own words of how you came to be where you are today at the helm of a number of businesses, and obviously well renowned throughout the world when it comes to advertising.
Sure. So I am half English, half Chinese. My father is English. My mother is Malaysian Chinese. I grew up in Brunei, in Borneo. I've worked all around the world, so I very much bring a global perspective to everything I do. My background is 35 years working in brand building, marketing and advertising, 16 of those spent, as you mentioned, at the same agency, Bartle Bogle Hegarty, BBH, for whom I worked in London, running big pieces of global business, moved to Singapore in '96 to help start up the Asia Pacific office, and I'm here in New York today because I moved here in '98 to start up their US office. And, I think it's worth saying, Leila, that everything in my life and career has happened by accident. I've not consciously planned anything. I'm a big fan of serendipity. And so today, as an entrepreneur, I'm the founder and CEO of MakeLoveNotPorn. We are pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference. We're the world's first and only user-generated, human-curated social sex video sharing platform. Effectively what Facebook would be if Facebook allowed you to socially, sexually self-express. We're socializing sex, making it easier for everyone to talk about, to promote consent, communication, good sexual values, and good sexual behavior. We call ourselves the social sex revolution. The revolutionary part is not the sex, it's the social. And alongside Make Love Not Porn, I work as a consultant and speaker. I consult specifically for brands and businesses that want to change the game in their particular sector. So you come to me for radical, innovative, groundbreaking, transformative. I don't do status quo. And so I sum up my consultancy approach as, I like to blow shit up. I am the Michael Bay of business. And I think it's worth highlighting, particularly given the conversation we're about to go into, that today and this year especially, I am working with a number of companies on diversity and inclusion, but in a very specific context. So I am not the unconscious bias trainer. I'm not the diversity inclusion coach. I'm a hard-headed business strategist who works with companies to help them re-engineer their day-to-day working processes in order to integrate diversity and inclusion, to make it a key driver of future growth, profitability, and better business outcomes. Put very simply, I help you make diversity and inclusion make you money. And I'm looking forward to having our conversation today in that context.
Come and help us, Cindy. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of diversity, inclusion and belonging, which, my goodness, I could talk about all day, every day, and I actually do. I wonder whether we could dig a little bit into your personal background. And, this is partially because I'm so curious. I know you say serendipity and, you're very modest there and say a lot of this has perhaps happened through, natural evolution of your personal career. But I rarely have the opportunity to speak to other females who are Chinese or from East Asia. And so I'm really curious about your background. I mean, did you envisage that when you were young, when you were your little girl even, that you wanted to go into business and you expected to be where you are today? Have you always had that kind of that entrepreneurial energy or gene, as my parents often say I have had? Because I was adopted actually by white British parents. They often say, oh, it's the Chinese genes. And I say, well, I don't know whether that is the case, but I wouldn't know because I don't know many other Chinese people.
I would say, I mean, certainly no, that was not something inherent in my personal journey, in that I'm 60. And so, when I was growing up, being an entrepreneur wasn't even thought about as a career path. With a Chinese mother, it was very much about, you go to university, you get a good job. But at the same time, I do concur with what you've just said, interestingly, Leila, because, these days we tend to focus on entrepreneurs as being, Silicon Valley, tech, etc. Young white men is the role model. And the fact of the matter is that in Asia, everybody is a natural entrepreneur. And by that I mean, the economy is run historically on people building businesses of every sort out of necessity, and I absolutely grew up with that all around me. And so, my mother was a fantastic role model in a rather sad context because, as a Malaysian Chinese woman, she is one of 10 brothers and sisters, where inevitably in those days, the boys got the education and the girls didn't. And if my mother had been enabled to go to university and to pursue a career in business, I swear today she would be a global tycoon. But, she trained as a teacher, she met my father, and actually later in life in Brunei, my parents are both teachers, but by background. And so she actually started a kindergarten in our house in Tutong, Brunei, because she had my younger sister, Melanie, and we were living out in, the rural part of Brunei. And so there weren't any kindergartens. So she started one. And it became so popular, she grew it into her own private school. She just kept adding classes as the kids aged through and ended up running this thriving business, which was a private school. And so, on the one hand, I would say, I was not like this naturally as a child. But on the other hand, I was surrounded by cultural dynamics that, undoubtedly went to make me what I am today.
What a wonderful story, and thank you so much for sharing. Your mum sounds like an absolute go-getter, and it's interesting that you talk about that. You touched there obviously on the different kind of cultural idiosyncratic details, and you've travelled all around the world. Clearly, that has had an impact on you, as well as the upbringing and the role models that you've had. How have you seen things change over, say, the last couple of decades? Because of course, rewind even as much as, a number of years ago, and there were different legal legislations preventing certain demographics or types of individuals from actually being able to be their true selves. So have you seen a marked shift in what has happened? And what's your take on why there still are so few, say, women, just picking one demographic there, who are older within, say, advertising? What more still needs to be done?
So this is a conversation I have very regularly, Leila, because, I am asked if I see change happening, and the answer is no. And then I'm asked why not. And the answer as to why not is very simple. At the top of my industry, advertising, as at the top of every industry, is a closed loop of white guys talking to white guys about other white guys. And by the way, that also operates, what I'm speaking about is also true globally, because that is also what is holding back advertising in Asia, which is dominated by global holding companies and agencies, where there is still at the top a closed loop of white guys talking to white guys about other white guys. Those white guys are sitting very pretty. They have their enormous salaries, their gigantic bonuses, their big pools of stock options, their lavish expense accounts. Why on earth would they ever want to rock the boat? Oh, they have to talk diversity. They have to have diversity initiatives. They have to appoint chief diversity officers. They have to say the word diversity a lot, especially in public. Secretly, deep down inside, they don't want to change a thing because the system is working just fine for them as it currently is. It's like the old joke about the light bulb. How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? Only one, but the light bulb has to really want to change. And in every industry, the light bulb does not really want to change. Now, when I have this conversation, the next question I'm generally asked is, so Cindy, what do you think it will take to make change happen the way you want to see it happen? And I have been saying for years, only one thing will make change happen on the diversity inclusion front, and that is complete, total, utter fucking disaster. And now we have it. And so the great thing about, what is happening as we speak, as I sit here talking to you literally, is the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter protests have ensured the world will never be the same again. And that is actually very good news, especially for those of us who were never the status quo to begin with. Because it is only when everything breaks down this utterly and completely, that allows new models and new ways of doing things to emerge that never would have otherwise. And so my message to everybody all around the world right now is there are two dynamics at play. First of all, that there is a dynamic of what is happening, as I said, as we speak, which is via the pandemic and the protests, the breakdown of the old world order. But then on top of that, there is a dynamic of what each one of us does to seize that opportunity and leverage it, because now we can, to make the world that we want to live and work in happen.
And hearing you say that, it seems so incredibly simple. And I don't want to sit here and be a classic interviewer in inverted commas and ask you the questions that you always get asked, because I can tell before they even out of your mouth, you have been asked them time and time and time again. And to a degree, I think, many people who look upon the world of diversity and inclusion do not realize how unbelievably relentless and driven you have to be to truly want to make a change, truly want to see something else other than the norm happen. So let's talk about what we think can come out of this pandemic by way of opportunity, and what you feel diversity, inclusion, and belonging really truly does mean now, right here and right now, because I appreciate for many different people, it means many different things. And we almost see here at Dial that, CSR starting to blend in there. We could talk about diversity in every single avenue. The amount of people that say to us, well, diversity and inclusion in my area, be it procurement, whatever it is, it's not as relevant. You need to speak to HR. No, we don't. Actually, diversity and inclusion and belonging within the procurement and supply chain, it is related to absolutely everything. And so, what are your feelings about, say, what diversity, inclusion and belonging means right at this point in time, and some of the exciting things that could and will come out of this?
Sure. So just to answer the end of that question first, the exciting thing is that we have not even begun to see what an innovative, creative, and especially lucrative world we'd all be living in if it was fully diverse and inclusive, okay? But to what you said, I am a huge fan of radical simplicity. The solution is radically simple. All you have to do is hire, welcome, and promote diverse talent, okay? That's the solution. Now, implementing it is not simple, okay? And And I'm going to give you an example of what I mean, because I think it's important that we get very, very specific in a way that I don't observe many people in business doing, because it's so easy to woke wash and to skate across the surface of this. And I'm going to use a very tangible example to demonstrate what I mean and to demonstrate my approach to working in this area. So I got a call last fall, and by the way, I get this call all the time, and I'm getting it especially this year in the wake of the protests. But I'm going to use this specific example. So last fall, I got a call from a white man who is a globally renowned, very, very senior marketer in my industry, overseeing a globally famous portfolio of brands. I'm not going to name any names. And so he called me up and he said, Cindy, I've got this huge global CMO position going, and I want to hire a Black woman. Who do you know? Okay, Leila, I get this call all the time. Okay, so my response was, it doesn't work like that. And I said to him, let me tell you the 4 things that you and your company need to do before you can even begin to think of hiring a Black woman. Okay, so he'd reached out to me a few days before this call, and so I'd had a chance to do my research. So I said, right, number 1, you have to completely re-engineer your job description for this role, because you have written this job description to appeal to a white man. And the demonstration of that is that you posted this job description on LinkedIn, and under it is a very long comments thread full of white men recommending either themselves or other white men for this role. And so I deconstructed this job description, and a number of things in it were brand specific, so I won't highlight them, but I'll give you one example. You know, in this description, he had said of the candidate, you will have a creative track record that makes us all jealous. And I said, no, they won't. Because no Black woman will ever have been promoted into a position where she would be able to do that. So you take that out, and instead you write something like, this is the role where you can bring all of your passion for creativity and finally get the chance to unleash it. Okay. So number 1, re-engineer your job description. Number 2, I said, you need to rebrief your recruiters. Because I said, without even knowing your brief, I know that you have told your recruiters to look for people already doing this role somewhere else. Don't do that. Brief your recruiters to look for brilliant, diverse talent 1, 2, 3 levels down from this role. Recruit for potential, not proof. Because they'll never have been promoted into this role, but I can guarantee that the diverse talent, the brilliant Black women 1, 2, 3 levels down, will do a far better job in this role than the white men currently occupying it, who never had to contend with any of those barriers. Number 3, I said, you need to re-engineer your interview process. And by the way, obviously I'm familiar with this company and it's full of white men. I said, when white men interview other white men, those white men start from a position of positivity. They are actively looking for reasons to hire those white men. When white men interview the rest of us, they start from a position of negativity, whether that's conscious or unconscious. And by the way, a lot more of this bias is actively conscious than is given credit. White men interviewing the rest of us start from a position of negativity. They are actively looking for reasons not to hire us. They are looking for red flags from the get-go. So you need to re-engineer your interview process. And then the 4th thing I said you need to do is you need to re-engineer your work environment. Because if you invite a Black female candidate into your company and she sees, as she will, that at her level, it is full of white men, she's going to go, why the fuck would I want to put myself in there? I know exactly what's going to happen. And I said, and it's very simple to re-engineer work environment. All you do is you identify the brilliant diverse talent, the brilliant Black talent in your company that's been overlooked and held down for years, and you promote them right now. And then when you invite that brilliant Black female candidate in, she sees an environment where she at least believes Black talent has a chance to thrive. Okay, that's what is not happening currently.
Fantastic 4-point summary there, Cindy. And I tell you, albeit I don't talk about it very much these days, but I do have an exec search business, and the amount of calls that we get, and more so of late, saying, hey, Leila, we need to hire diverse. One in particular, a large firm who will go unnamed, I said, well, I told you this 4 years ago. And what you described there, when you talk about changing the work environment, ultimately making sure that you're promoting from within, and that is then demonstrated, is what I then retort back to people and suggest that they are likely to see organ rejection if that then, if they then go through the whole, the box ticking, we hire diverse in inverted commas, pop them in, and then lo and behold, 6 to 8 months later, it doesn't work out. And everyone goes, oh, we tried to hire diverse and it didn't work, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, well, exactly what you have just epitomized in a perfect little nutshell there is the fact that there is no one silver bullet. There never will be a silver bullet point. And so there never will be a silver bullet, it's all of those multifaceted things that really need to come from the heart and the willingness to actually want to change, as opposed to just pay the usual lip service to this and hope that something might be different next time. And so I guess I move on into another hot topic that we really wanted to ask you about. And there's a gazillion of other questions that I really wanted to get to as well about you personally. And again, I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but how you have countered the things that you may have come across within your career today. But before we get there, I wonder whether we could go into talking about another form of diversity. So not so much on the race side, albeit that also plays another part. When we look at intersectionality and start to layer those parts on top of each other, it becomes even more depressing looking at the stats. But actually, age in specifics, we've been doing a fair bit of work with the Centre for Aging Better around this diversity and inclusion report that we've been working on for charity of late. And we noticed some of the absolutely appalling statistics within age and generation as a whole. And by age, I mean generally our more mature population as opposed to those who are entry level. And I wondered your take on this, because I did a bit of research as well earlier this morning and pulled up various things about the advertising arena, which of course, is the area in which you're an expert. I know less, in all honesty, about advertising in particular, but I noticed there was articles, and some of the ones which came up at the top were articles back as long as 2016 saying age is the new diversity problem within advertising. I thought, oh my good God, how much has actually changed? They talk of the forgotten after 50 piece. They talk about lack of demographics. One only needs to do a little bit of a search and see when it comes to advertising and such, there's these kind of sexy, youthful type pictures all over the place. It doesn't denote an area that looks as if it is friendly to those that are more mature. And I wondered your take on this.
So advertising is ageist as fuck, but so is every other industry. So I have been challenging and fighting ageism for literally decades. And again, I think it's very important for your audience to hear, Leila. I've been doing that because I am a hard-headed business strategist and businesswoman. And I am just gobsmacked by the fact that businesses are spectacularly failing to see the value to them of older people, or as I like to call us, experts. Because the huge mistake that every single company is making is failing to hire, value, retain, promote, and reward older talent, because older talent is spectacularly time and cost efficient. You do far better business when you hire, retain, promote, value, and reward older talent. Because when you are an expert like me and everybody else in the older age group, you know exactly what to do in any business crisis scenario. Because when you've been around the block 64 million times, you've encountered pretty much every crisis, previously in your life. You know exactly how to handle it. You've been through enough to be able to be the calm center of the storm when everyone is running around losing their heads. You are able, after years of experience, to strategize the solution to any challenge in business and implement it really quickly because you know exactly how to. Mm-hmm. You are an expert in people management, which is something nobody has ever taught and which you only learn after decades of doing that. You have craft skills. You know your business inside out because you've been doing it for years. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, basically. But, you know, for that reason, every company that does not actively value older talent is doing far worse business than it would. It could be making so much more money. Now, that doesn't even account for the fact that every company would be making so much more money if it targeted older people. And this is where, again, I have been especially challenging ageism in the advertising industry for decades, because what we do in my industry is a very powerful force in popular culture. What you see in advertising absolutely shapes societal attitudes and behavior. And so I have been working to change ageism in the ad industry, because when we change ageism in the ad industry, we change depictions of aging in advertising, and that in turn changes ageism in society. And that's why it's critically important.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some of the best adverts I've seen are the ones where, and actually, I don't know what I should be mentioning. In fact, it's fine to mention ads, I guess, here, but some of the Dove adverts where they had, different people, United Nations, it's classic, love those adverts. But ones where there is a real mixture of demographics and individuals who are represented, it feels so much more, right.
Now, Leila, sorry to interrupt, but that's not what it's about. Okay, and what I mean by that is, what we don't need in the advertising industry is what is currently happening and what gave rise to the campaign you're talking about, which is young white male creatives going, ooh, got to make the ads more diverse, got to show diversity in the ads.
Do you think that's what happened with the Dove one?
Because guess what? When instead, so this is what I mean when I say to the advertising industry, as I've been saying for years, don't talk diversity. Don't do inspirational, compelling campaigns about diversity. Don't do publicity stunts about diversity. Just fucking be diverse. And by the way, I love that you gave me permission to swear. I use the F word very deliberately for emphasis, because that is what is not happening. Because guess what? When you do what the advertising industry does not currently do, what Dove's advertising agency is not currently doing, when you have diverse teams, diverse people creating the ads, approving the ads, casting the ads, producing the ads, directing the ads, you never have to think about diversity again, because guess what? They are diverse. Mm-hmm. And I've been very semantically precise, Leila, in picking every single one of the list of terms I just cited, because it doesn't matter if you are the young Black female team that is the only female team and the only Black team in the entire white boy dominated creative department. It doesn't matter if that young Black female team has done this bloody brilliant campaign. If they then have to present that brilliant campaign to their white male executive creative director, who reviews that work through the white male lens, either rejects it or goes, nah, you want to change it like this, okay. So that's why you have to have diverse talent, not only creating the ads, approving the ads, okay? It does, because it also doesn't matter if that white male ECD then having completely bastardized that ad, goes, right, so to direct this ad, this TV commercial, we want like one of the most famous directors working today because I want to hang out with them on set. So you get a white male director, okay? And that white male director's producer hires a casting director who knows that this particular director likes attractive people in their ads. And so those attractive people have to be young, and so to the casting pool come only young people. You take my point, okay? It's your point earlier about, along every point of the supply and distribution chain, we have to have diverse talent creating the ads, approving the ads, directing the ads, photographing the ads, producing the ads, casting the ads. And when we have that, we have not just, by the way, naturally diverse creative output, we have utterly innovative disruptive creative output of the kind you've never seen before. Look at the plaudits currently being heaped on Michaela Coel for her brilliant series, I May Destroy You. That series is extraordinary because it's a creative vision through the lens of a brilliant Black woman that has produced a creative product we've never seen before. Imagine that happening in every single company because you are genuinely diverse and inclusive, because you have hired and integrated and welcomed diverse talent, and it is responsible for everything. That is what is not happening in the world today, right now. Mm-hmm. And obviously what should be happening.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's such well-articulated points there, Cindy, and I absolutely concur in what you're saying. And in my more simplistic way of saying it is diversity in equals diversity out, and a fully more disruptive, more, far more exciting and holistic approach, ultimately, not just a better doer D&I ad here. But if I could...
And also, Leila, sorry to interrupt, but also a way more lucrative, profitable, and money-making approach.
Yes, absolutely. And, we all, even if we have our businesses for good, which we do, arguably we love to make money, and that is a great thing and shouldn't be something that should be talked about in a negative way, which I sometimes think it is if you're trying to do things for good. Two things are...
Exactly. The future is doing good and making money simultaneously.
Absolutely, absolutely. But if I may politely challenge one of your earlier points, and, I say politely challenge here because you
darling,
because you are...
Don't mind having challenge. I don't mind in the slightest.
Yes, absolutely. But I do always feel, and especially when I'm interviewing experts, I always feel I should be as respectful to their superior knowledge. And look, at the end of the day, they are superior in their knowledge to me, but I must politely challenge just because I'm curious and I want to ask it. But when it comes to the Dove campaign, and that one in particular, because I love that campaign. And again, maybe it's just me, we all have our different takes. I'm not an advertising expert. And so did I know who and what was behind the campaign? I saw it, I loved it. I thought, oh, wow, real women, finally. In my earlier days, long story, did do a little tiny bit of, modeling. I tell you what, no one wanted a short and stumpy Chinese girl in any of their ads back in the days, but I did a little at university. And so for me, always have been tuned into beauty and ads and all these kind of things. But I wonder your take when we were talking, when you started the conversation and I'd mentioned the Dove ad and you said, let me stop you there. I'm not sure about that. It's white males doing that. It doesn't, it doesn't necessarily, that's a lip service kind of piece. Can't remember the exact words that you used. How do we, and perhaps you do know that it was white males who were behind that per se, it was not diverse individuals, but what were the main fundamentals that were wrong with that? Because you said on the one hand that we need to see visual representation, and we also said this is not a one silver bullet situation, it's got to be from many different angles. Therefore, to a degree, if we can't see it, how can we be it, and all that kind of stuff.
No, very happy to answer that, Leila. So first of all, let me just emphasize that I do absolutely give enormous credit to Unilever for the Dove campaign over the years, because they have done very interesting and much more enlightened things within that campaign than the rest of the industry. Okay, so I absolutely want to emphasize that, plaudits too, absolutely setting off along that path in the right kind of way. They have not taken that far enough, and they have not internalized their own message enough. And what I mean by that is, to give you a couple of examples, the first is, with the Dove body diversity campaign that I think is the one you're referencing from, and this is from a few years back. So what you had was what happens quite a lot in our industry, which is, and in fact, I coined a term for this, CCD, carefully calibrated diversity, okay? And so what you had was an aesthetically art-directed range of bodies that did not go far enough in terms of full acceptance of full-on body diversity. And I can see from your smile, which obviously the audience can't see, that you know what I mean by carefully calibrated diversity, okay? And so I've been saying for years to my industry that the future is not stereotypes, the future is real. And that means embracing real people in all of their realness, as opposed to casting for one thin one, one short one, one curvy one with an accepted parameter. You know what I mean, basically, okay? Another example, which I absolutely deplore, is, when you, purport, as Dove does, to be absolutely celebrating real women, real bodies, do not come out with a product that makes us all feel insecure about our armpits. Are you familiar with the Dove Beautiful Armpit campaign?
You must remind me, forgive me.
Well, no, it's okay. It's running at the moment. But Dove basically have a deodorant skin conditioning product that basically tells you that confidence is all about having beautiful armpits. Come the fuck on. Okay, and I'm sorry, Leila, that leans right into the entirely justified criticism of brands and brand marketers and advertising agencies for selling products through making us as women feel insecure about every part of ourselves. Where is the men, are your armpits up to scratch campaign? Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, that product goes completely counter to what Dove have been selling to us for decades.
I have to say, this is a really great segue into, because I've got to mention it, Make Love Not Porn. I mean, I was having another check out of this before, and what I love is where you it's all about kind of real life, real people. And it's not, a lot of people say real, it's another of the terms that starts to get overused. But when people say real, they don't actually mean real, almost. And I know that you put on the site, it's glorious, it's silly, it's beautiful, it's messy, it's reassuringly human. And it makes you smile. Talk to me about, and it's perfect segue, because it's a very good comparison if we're taking the... Sorry.
Yeah, but no, it really is. I'm very glad you segued into this, Leila, because at Make Love Not Porn, so there are many different social benefits wrapped into what we do. But the one you've highlighted is a very big one, because as the world's only real world sex video sharing platform, we celebrate real world everything. Real world bodies, real world hair, real world penis size, real world breast size. And the reason this is critically important, Leila, is because you can talk body positivity all you like. You can preach self-love till you're blue in the face. Nothing makes people feel great about their own bodies like watching people who are nobody's idea of aspirational body types getting turned on by each other, desiring each other, having a bloody amazing time in bed. Our mantra is everybody is beautiful when they're having real world sex on Make Love Not Porn, and they really are. And as I say, that is critically important, because all around us every day in popular culture, we see messages. We are socially conditioned to believe that only certain types of bodies, certain types of looks are sexually attractive. And Make Love Not Porn explodes that notion. Last summer, you may recall this, when Love Island announced their last year's new season lineup. There was an absolute shitstorm about the lack of diversity and the lack of body diversity in the contestants. And the producer of Love Island was interviewed about this, and he made the enormous mistake of saying, well, we have to cast what people find attractive. And the entire internet came down his head, including me. And in fact, my tweet to him appeared in a Daily Mail piece about this at the time.
Go on. What was the Daily Mail? What was the Daily Mail tweet? You must say.
So I tweeted back at him and I said, walk through any park in any city in the summer and look at the couples sitting on the grass, holding hands, walking around, with each other, and you will see exactly what people find attractive in the real world, which, as we all know, is not restricted to aspirational body types and aspirational facial good looks. A function of attractiveness in the real world is how you connect with that person in the real world. And we celebrate that. I mean, we also, at Make Love Not Porn, obviously celebrate real world emotion, love, intimacy, connection, feelings. And, that is so important in terms of making people see that how attractive you are has nothing to do with what the rest of the world tells you. And we hear all the time at Make Love Not Porn from our members saying, you made me feel better about my own body. You made me feel able to be more open with my partner because I felt better about myself. Critically important.
That's such a wonderful story, and it genuinely is the first website that I have ever seen quite like that. I mean, it just literally turns, kind of the lip service of what is real on its absolute bloody head, doesn't it? Absolutely phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And before we wrap up for today, Cindy, because there are, quite frankly, 1,000,001 other questions that I could ask you, and I'm already thinking about the hopeful future podcast we may be able to invite you on. But I must ask, what is next for you? Because you are literally pulling up trees wherever you go, and in a very, very positive manner, I must say. What is on the agenda for Cindy moving forward? Are there any other great aspirations that you are...
Well, no, only, I mean, my aspirations are what I'm working on, Leila. On the agenda for me is scaling Make Love Not Porn to be the Facebook of social sex. I mean, literally that scale globally. And to do that, I need investors, I need funding. And so I am about to set out to raise a round of serious funding for Make Love Not Porn. And that is challenging because historically, my biggest obstacle finding funding has been the social dynamic I call fear of what other people will think, which operates around sex unlike any other area. But I know my investors are out there. They are just very hard to find by the usual means, because sex is the one area where you cannot tell from the outside what anybody thinks on the inside. The people you think would totally get it don't. The people you thought were total prudes do. The one thing that determines whether you as an investor will fund Make Love Not Porn is entirely a function of your personal sexual journey. It's about your personal lens on sex and sexuality driven by your personal experience. And so it's much more difficult for me to find investors than anybody in a more conventional tech startup scenario. But that's my next immediate focus, because I am single-mindedly focused on enabling Make Love Not Porn to change the world through sex. As an utterly unique venture, we have an utterly unique superpower. We have the ability to change people's sexual attitudes and behavior for the better. And the reason that's critically important is because Make Love Not Porn operates in the single biggest market of them all. Not sex, not porn, the market of human happiness.
I was actually about to say, Cindy, give us an elevator pitch, because I'd love to hear someone get in touch with you about Make Love Not Porn. But I think that is an absolute perfect summary of it right there. Is something that, and also you said you can't tell what anyone is thinking on the inside. That's kind of the exciting part in a way, isn't it? It's kind of what is actually going on in that person's mind when it comes to sexual habits or whatever it might be, whether they're prude, whether they get embarrassed about it, whether they're quite happy to talk about goodness knows what. But it is something that each and every one of us pretty much do on the planet. And so it's
no, and it is very ironic, Leila, that this is the one universal human experience that we all enjoy, that we are the most fucked up about. And so what's key about Make Love Not Porn is not just what we're doing, but how we're doing it. Because we are bringing real world sex out into the sunlight. We are socializing and normalizing all of this. I always remember a fantastic quote. Many years ago, I was booked to interview Larry Flint, the founder of Hustler, for the opening session of an entertainment conference in LA. And I was in the green room with Larry, running through the list of questions I was going to ask him. And one of my questions was going to be, Larry, you pioneered in an industry where nobody has ever encouraged to pioneer. And I was going to go on and ask, what would you say to entrepreneurs today to encourage them to do the same thing? But he interrupted me. He stopped me. He said, I never thought of myself as a pioneer because I just didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I love that response. What we do at Make Love Not Porn is we go, nobody's doing anything wrong.
I love it. You just own it, as my American husband would say. Absolutely love it. And before we go, and before I do a summary, which, oh my goodness, I've got pages of notes here, even where to start on a summary. We always do in classic form a little lightning round at the end. And so I'm just going to ask two quick questions here, if I may.
Sure.
I wonder, first and foremost, who has been the biggest influence on you and where you are right now? And maybe it's one or two people, perhaps your mother, I'm sure is in there because you mentioned it before, but who have been kind of the biggest inspirations, be it heroes, sheroes, whomever they may be on your journey to success?
Honestly, I am just inspired every day by anybody who is working to change the world to be the world that we all want to live and work in. And there are so many people doing that in so many different capacities every day, and I'm inspired by each and every one of them.
If you could go back in time, Cindy, and talk to your younger self when you're about to embark on your big old advertising career, what would you say to yourself, or indeed someone who might be in a similar position, who looks up to you as you are now and thinks, wow, God, I'd love to be where Cindy is one day?
Honestly, do you know, the thing I would absolutely love to tell my younger self is the one thing, you know, I don't regret a lot of things about my career, but the one thing I regret is I wish I'd started working for myself a whole lot sooner. And so I would absolutely say to my younger self, you know, as soon as you can, start working for yourself. I am an absolute evangelist on the subject of working for yourself. You know, too many people think that a job is the safe option. It's not, because in a job, you're at the complete mercy of management changes, market downturns, industry dynamics. I always say, whose hands would you rather place your future in? Those of a large corporate entity who at the end of the day doesn't give a shit about you, or somebody who will always have your best interests at heart, i.e. you. I love the freedom and independence and ability to design the world you want to live and work in that working for yourself brings.
Thank you so much, Cindy. And your words there, if ever I felt proud to be an entrepreneur, in inverted commas, it would be right now listening to you say something like that. As a young girl, all I wanted was to work in a corporate. All I wanted. I couldn't get a job in any of them despite a good university degree, and so embarked on this path. But hearing someone like yourself say that, it means the world, and I hope that it means the world to many others who are tuning into this podcast. Honestly, thank you so much. By way of very quick summary, I'm not going to go through everything, but I will just say, anyone who is listening in today, if you missed anything at all from the remarkable Cindy, don't worry, because we're going to put all the key learning points into the session at the end of the show notes, which will be live on our site. I think, Cindy, you know, if there's some real key pieces of takeaway, I would say, you know, that every single person, despite who you are, you can make a difference. And sometimes, do you know what, screw kind of all of the, you know, the frills and everything else that goes with it, and bloody well, just go and fucking do it. You know, it is sometimes, you know, there are times in life where, you know, you think you ought to be doing the right thing. Well, bloody hell, I'm swearing now. Oh my goodness. And I do swear a lot more actually outside the realms of the podcast, but I'm bit scared to swear too much on this one, but hey, you know, if I can't swear with Cindy Gallop, then who can I swear with? And so bloody well, just get and fucking do it, because if there is a time, it is right now, after everything that is going on in the world. And I really hope this podcast has inspired each and every one of you to make a change. I also particularly love the pieces that I loved our debate as well, you know, around the age piece. You know, obviously this is something which Cindy's been championing for so many years, but if you are older, you're more mature, you've got experience, you're having a particularly difficult time at the moment, given everything that's happened with COVID and so many kind of furlough redundancies, everything like that happen. Do not lose hope, because my God, you can be sexy, you can be sassy, you can be outspoken, you can create your own fucking business. Look at what Cindy has done. She is an absolute inspiration to humanity. And by humanness, there is nothing more real than Make Love Not Porn. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure that you do. You can visit Make Love Not Porn at MakeLoveNotPorn.tv as well. But again, we'll put all of the details into the show notes at the end of today's session. My name is Leila Mackenzie Dallas, and you've been listening to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the podcast. Visit us at www.dalglobal.org/podcast. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you so much for watching the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast. Please do feel free to hit the like button below, or if you'd like to receive future notifications, do ping the notification bell here at the side. If you're interested in the audio version only, you can find it on the following streaming platforms. Any extra info and descriptions will be in the links below. Look forward to seeing you soon.